Hello and welcome to Network. My name is Spumelele Zondi with your technology and social media news. Remember that if you want to be a part of this technology conversation, you must find us on SABC Network. That's on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Use network at sabc.co.za on email. You can also use the hashtag SABC Network. Here's what's coming up in the program. The Independent Communications Authority of South Africa recommends that users get better warning before their data runs out. Spaza shop owners are now getting digital if they want to stock up. And our discussion is about tech for purposes of development. Simon Carpenter, who is a Chief Technology Advisor at SAP Africa, is here for that one. Hello, Simon.
Hi, Spumelele. Nice to be with you.
All right, sure. Now, how important is it for technology to be used for purposes of development?
It's hugely important. I think it's the one thing that's going to allow us to leapfrog some of the challenges that we face today, not just in Africa, but other developing economies.
Yeah, we'll get deeper in the discussion later on in the program. But first, here's the technology and social media news. The Independent Communications Authority of South Africa has issued new regulations that should help South Africans make better use of their data. They say cell phone network operators must warn consumers when they've used 50% of their data and again when they've used 80% of it. At the moment, many warn consumers as data is about to run out. ICASA also says people must be given an option to carry over their data to the next month. These are recommendations for the End User and Subscriber Service Charter to be gazetted soon.
We anticipate for these regulations to immediately address the issues that I've spoken to earlier on around the bill shock that comes out of as a result of people being defaulted into out-of-bundle rates, which are significantly higher than in-bundle rates without this consent. And then the second one is to address the issue of the expiry of data. Because now, based on the new regulations, users, as I've mentioned, are given an option to either share the data before it expires or roll it over to the next period.
Townships Spaza shops are now stores that help people sell basic needs that could run out when one doesn't expect it. Up until now, they've used traditional means to find basic goods at affordable prices, so they aren't too expensive for township residents. That task is now getting help from a digital platform.
Many people in townships buy some of their groceries from Spaza shops. Spaza shop owners also have an added task of finding out where good deals are so they are not too expensive for their customers.
The way I see it is that you get points for each and every product that you buy. Well, not all products. Well, it depends on which product it is. It could be a self-help product. You always get points for that. So with airtime and your data and all of those things, you get points for that every single time, you know. So one day, maybe you don't have money, you use those points to actually buy whatever you need, you understand? So that's how I think it's beneficial.
Selpal says they have developed a digital method that will make this task easy for Spaza shop owners.
Township business has suffered from a lack of technology, and there's a few key reasons why many technology implementations in the township has failed. The first one is a lack of understanding of the needs of the customer in the township. Fundamentally, technology has to meet a value proposition that your customer has. And if you don't properly understand their needs, it's very difficult to give them a piece of technology that's going to work for them. So it starts with respecting your customer, and it starts with understanding what your customer needs. If you understand what your customer needs and wants, and then you bring them a piece of technology that meets those needs and wants, you have a stronger chance of succeeding.
This solution also helps guide foot traffic through small retailers' doors, with customers being provided with incentives for buying selected items at Selpal's partner stores.
The value proposition to the manufacturer is data, a better understanding of the market and volume, The value proposition to the merchant is a device that makes them money, and the value proposition to the end customer is a loyalty scheme and convenience that puts money in the pockets of the people who need value the most.
The Internet of Things is going to digitize most of what we use. This is to make it easier to do things in life. Now, Sandile Hlangani tells us about the Internet of Things.
The Internet of Things speaks about machines speaking to machines in order to make our lives easier. You see, in the manner in which many of what we use on a daily basis has become automated. Vox Telecom says the growth of Internet of Things carries several benefits.
Our devices basically enable IT companies to extend their value-added services of providing additional value to their customers by using our devices as sensory devices on the back of our network. And that will provide additional value to their customers, not only now but also in the future.
As a result, they have launched a series of fully managed Internet of Things-based solutions that will help businesses such as farmers to remotely monitor and manage their assets.
We are on the innovation edge of basically launching a new network in South Africa called Sigfox. Our devices are low-power devices and their battery life is extremely long. These IoT devices enable additional security measures to be implemented into farms, businesses, homes, to enable basically additional security for those areas of implementation.
Those in the technology sector in South Africa say Internet of Things will displace many jobs over the next 10 years, but many others will be created.
The jobs are one of those things that every time technology moves forward, we believe that jobs are going to finish and there's going to be no more jobs. If you think back to the industrial era, when automation came along, that was the big fear, is that there'd be no more jobs. And so every time there's a technological advance, that is our biggest concern. But if we fast forward 200 years, what we found is that there's no noticeable decrease in jobs right now as a result of those technological improvements. What we find is that people work shorter, people live longer hours, live longer lives, but they also are more healthy. So in general, society seems to improve with technology and there's no noticeable decrease in jobs.
Vox says their solutions, coupled with advanced analytics, big data collection, will bring new security options, including asset and animal tracking for farmers.
And the Internet of Things is about connecting multiple devices. And if I say multiple, I'm talking about billions of devices onto the Internet. The main purpose of connecting devices onto the Internet is to collect data. And the more data we've got collected, the better decisions we can make.
While Internet of Things products should make our lives easier, experts say we should also improve security online, as more connected products mean a bigger chance of falling prey to hackers.
After the break, we chat about technology for purposes of development. Simon Carpenter from SAP is here for that one. Stay with us.
If you ask this Irish master whiskey distiller why sometimes whiskey is spelt with an E and sometimes without, he'd say,
You feel so good, look. It's the whole thing. They're a back and get off in the whiskey without the E.
Yeah, didn't catch that. But if you asked us the difference, we'd tell you that every whiskey from around the world is spelt without the E, except for Irish and American whiskies.
Get a 750ml bottle of Johnny Walker Red Label whiskey for only $189.99 from Tops at Spar.
We make sure to be where news is happening,
both locally and globally. For the latest business news, stay with us.
From South Africa to the world, we've got all your latest sporting news.
Don't miss our weather updates every hour.
Stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
It is the SABC Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. News Network at sabc.co.za on email. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, while technology makes our lives easier, it also helps in situations of development. Now, joining me to talk about that a bit further is Simon Carpenter, who is a Chief Technology Advisor at SAP Africa. Hello, Simon.
Hi, Simpumeleli. Thanks for having me on your show.
All right, sure. It's a pleasure to have you. Now, technology in terms of development, in what you do, agriculture is a big deal, is it not?
It is indeed. Well, it's a big deal for all of us because it kind of fuels who we are as human beings. And if you look specifically in Africa, around about 70% of all the work that is done on this continent where people have a job of some sort is in agriculture. So it's a huge industry across the length and breadth of our continent.
When one thinks of agriculture, we think of big machineries. That's the type of technology you're talking about.
Well, that, and at the other end of the scale, we're very focused on how do we enable small-scale farmers, because the reality is in Africa, around about 80% of all the food produced on this continent is produced by small-scale farmers, not very large farming operations, although there are plenty of those. So a massive amount of the food that is produced here is produced by people who are typically farming less than 2 hectares of land and who don't have access to banking, who don't today have access to information that would help them to farm better, help them to sell the crops they grow for more money, and in so doing lift them out of poverty and turn them from subsistence farming into farmers who produce a surplus that can then be taken to market and help impact food security across the continent.
What type of access to technology does someone who doesn't have access to even banks have the ability to use?
Well, the one thing we know about Africa is it's embraced mobile technology in a big way. Not necessarily smartphones today. There's still a lot of feature phones floating around out there. But with the right technologies, we can at least start to give a farmer information on perhaps there's a storm coming, so don't bother to water, or there's a pest outbreak, so do this on your crop, or this is the price of your crop you should be asking when you take it to the co-op to sell it. So even with a feature phone, we can do an awful lot to help farmers farm better.
How do you find that people who use those technologies, how do you find that they accept them? Do you find that they disregard them, or is the uptake good?
You raise a really good point there. You can't ride in from sort of the developed economies on a white horse and think you're going to save everybody. You have to build solutions that people will want to use. So we have a solution called rural sourcing management, which is targeted at the low end of the pyramid, at small scale farmers. We spent literally a good couple of years walking the fields with small scale farmers, understanding how they live, how they farm, and what they would find useful before we created the solution. So we kind of acted like anthropologists, what's it like to be a small-scale farmer in Africa, and how do we help you do that better?
Yeah, and your offices are in Johannesburg, but are these solutions, do they work in other parts of the African continent outside South Africa?
Well, interestingly enough, the solution I'm referred to just now, rural sourcing, was developed in West Africa initially for cocoa farmers. Today it's deployed across East Africa and West Africa. We haven't actually deployed it in South Africa yet. We've focused on economies like Uganda, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, and others, where they're less industrialized than South Africa, so there's a greater predominance of small-scale farming there.
Who do you work with, or do you do this all by yourselves as SAP?
You can't do anything by yourself today. I mean, just looking at that insert you had earlier on the show, when you start talking about Internet of Things, you need people to build the devices, you need people to move the data, you need platforms to analyze the data. So it's all about collaboration. So we work with the German government, with organizations like GIZ, we work with World Bank funded projects, we work with NGOs, and in fact we'll be up at a conference in Zambia in May, early May, discussing in a multilateral environment how to use ICT for development.
And it's not just in agriculture that ICT is used?
No, not at all. It's everywhere. I mean, if you think about running a government efficiently, that's dependent on technology today. If you think about how a government sets policy and where it wants to put money into irrigation schemes or roads or bridges or dams, it needs data to inform those decisions. So every single facet of society is going to be driven more and more by data.
But you do move beyond phones. It's not just, your technologies are not just on smartphones or feature phones even.
Not just, and today the technology is, it's all getting joined up together. So if we look at things like healthcare, for example, the ability today to take the data straight off of a machine that is reading your DNA sequence and bring that into a big data platform, such as SAP has, and then drive analytics on that, means we can start to deliver precision medicine to you that gives you a much better chance of being cured of whatever it is that ails you. So it's about, ICT today is about new sources of data streaming off machines through this notion of the Internet of Things, being able to analyze that data and do that really, really quickly so that we can deliver a result while an issue or an event is in flight. That's the key today to really improving a lot of different processes in the world.
Simon, when you participate in conferences such as the one you told us about in Zambia, what are you hoping to find from those conferences?
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, we're hoping to find intelligent young tech entrepreneurs in Africa, because one of the things we have is we have a platform that embodies many different technologies: spatial technology, machine learning, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, but we don't have all the ideas about how to use that technology. So one thing we look for at these conferences is people who've got an idea that could be solved with technology. We'll provide the technology, we'll provide them with coaching and stuff like that and access to our ecosystem, and they bring their ideas and create new solutions. So that's the one thing. The other thing is we're looking for partners who will help us get stuff done in Africa. So let's go and put in a new healthcare system in a rural area. We can't do that on our own. We're a very big organization. We're very purpose-driven, but we don't have everything that's needed to create a solution for society today. So we have to work with other partners. And I think what's really important when we go to these conferences, we want to go beyond a talk fest to actually something getting done.
Implementation in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, sure. Thank you very much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, so that is Simon Carpenter. He is the Chief Technology Advisor at SAP Africa. Now, we also caught up with Morning Live presenter Palisa Chubisi. She told us what her favorite piece of technology is.
Hi everyone, my name is Palisa Chubisi. This is my favorite piece of technology. It's Samsung 8 Plus. This is really my life. I cannot even go a few minutes without it. It's my life. It's got everything. I do business. I'm a parent, of course, and my son's school diary is kept here. So I just, a click away, I get to see what I have to do. So this is really, really my life. I cannot live without it, not even for a second.
We give you a front row seat to all the local and international entertainment news on Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
SABC Network, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, Facebook faces the music in the United Kingdom, and the world is introduced to real-life transformers. These are some of the stories that made tech headlines in the last week.
The Facebook saga continues. Now in the UK, the social network endured a bruising encounter with lawmakers.
It outlines for me a pattern of behaviour, an MO, if you like, for your company. Bullying journalists, threatening academic institutions, and potentially impeding, investigations by law authorities. I put it to you today, sir, that Facebook is a morality-free zone, destructive to a fundamental right of privacy.
I think we're trying to do the best we can to give you all the information.
I don't think you are, Mr. Schiffer.
Sir,
Political advertisement on the platform formed a substantive part of questioning, with Facebook announcing ads would have to show who paid for them. Lawmakers in the UK reiterated that on any issue that buck stops with Mark Zuckerberg, and that they are still waiting to hear from him. Now heading over to Germany. The country's auto supplier Robert Bosch said on Wednesday that it had developed a new exhaust emission treatment technology that cuts pollution from health-threatening nitrogen oxides to 13 milligrams per kilometer, well below the current legal limit of 120 milligrams.
The main focus was thermal management, which engineers like to mention when temperature in emission system is no longer just accepted, but is being steered. This was at the core of this development.
Das war das Herzstück der Entwicklung.
Prosecutors in Stuttgart are probing several car brands and supplier Bosch for their suspected roles in using an engine control unit, EDC-17, to cheat exhaust emission tests. It seems the movie Transformers has become a reality in Japan. The Asian country's engineers unveiled on Wednesday a robot that transforms into a car that can actually carry people on board, in what they said was the first ever such accomplishment in the history of robots.
The robots I've seen in animation movies since childhood all had this kind of look, and they transform into or combined with each other to become something else with people on board. So I grew up believing that robots had to be capable of such things, which became my motivation to develop this robot.
While admitting that it may seem like an expensive toy, Ishida said the robot is an attempt to inspire others and broaden the human imagination.
Now, let's stay with that Facebook story, as WhatsApp is owned by Facebook. In Europe, WhatsApp has increased the minimum age for its users from 13 to 16 and not 18, as it says on our poll there. Now, on Twitter, we've been asking if you agree with this move. Now, 50% of you say yes, you agree with this move. That's the overwhelming majority. 14% say no. In second place are people who say it should be done here too. That figure is at 22%. 14% of respondents say it does not matter. And that's all we have for you. Find us on SABC Network. Now that's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Use network at sabc.co.za on email. We leave you with visuals of a robot that transforms into a car in Japan. From me and the rest of the network team, have a good one. Bye-bye.
SABCnews.com is your one-stop digital portal to all the news you need.